Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel and the podcast. Today we are going to break down and take a look at this Thursday night football showdown slate for the NFL Week 14. Draftkings, FantasyDraft, FanDuel, whatever it might be, slate between the Baltimore Ravens, led by MVP candidate, runaway right now, Lamar Jackson, against, not quite the same, Sam Darnold and the New York Jets. So, before we get into it, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I appreciate you being here. My name is Sal Vetri. I cover daily fantasy sports in a variety of different sports. The NFL right here you are seeing, and NBA on a daily basis if you want to check out those videos. I do appreciate it if you hit that 5-star rating review on the audio version, and also the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And a little way to entice you over here on YouTube is if you leave a comment down below, who is your favorite play below $5,000 on this slate? Favorite person to roster below $5,000. Leave that comment with your Twitter handle or your PayPal or a way for me to contact you. And on Friday's Final Thoughts video for the NFL Week 15 slate, that video, I'll announce a winner. I'll compile all the comments from this week. So you must be a subscriber. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I will only be choosing subscribers who use that comment. Who is your favorite player below $5,000? Check out my exclusive content over on Patreon. That is also linked up down below. And if you are interested, I'm going to be running a sale on my daily fantasy course for the NFL season. An NBA one is going to be coming out soon, working on that now, but an NFL one, if you are interested in getting the sale for currently 66% off, let me know down below in the comments, and I will send you the link, the coupon code link to that. So check all that stuff out. You can follow me on social medias as well. That being said, let's get into the showdown video. And remember, hit that subscribe button on the podcast version as well as over on YouTube. You all freaking rock. So right now it's interesting. It's tough to judge this slate as I shoot this video on Tuesday night because we still do need some injury news and some things might change. It seems like Mark Andrews is going to suit up and play. He had some sort of bruise that wasn't as bad as it seemed, so he's probably going to play, although not practice in any full capacity this week. Le'Veon Bell's illness, they said he could have played on Saturday. He was begging them to let him play, but he didn't, so it seems like he'll play on Thursday. But Bilal Powell has not been practicing yet this week. There's a good chance he misses the short week. Ended up getting nicked up towards the end of that game in Week 14, so Ty Montgomery will probably act as the primary back, or at least that's how I'm approaching this slate, behind Le'Veon Bell, who should resume taking on his full responsibilities. But outside of that, there's no major news on the offensive side for either of these teams outside of the Le'Veon Bell status, the Bilal Powell, Mark Andrews, and lastly, Ryan Griffin. He is going to actually be questionable, probably a game-time decision for this one. If he was to miss, Daniel Brown, backup tight end, would fill in. He ran 20 routes last week after Griffin left after running just a few routes. Daniel Brown saw 2 targets last week, caught 1 pass for 7 yards. Likely a little overpriced at $2,000 regardless of if Griffin is in or not, but at least worth a flyer if Griffin would be out in this tough matchup against the Ravens secondary. So starting at the top, I have 4 yeses in terms of, as of right now, they're definitely probably more of priorities for this slate. Lamar Jackson, $13,800. Last time he was on a showdown slate, he was $13,000 plus. He's expensive. You probably can't roster him as a captain. If you do, you need a lot to go right at that price point. You're just not filling out the rest of your lineup with many great players. On this slate, honestly, there's not many great players to want to choose from. A lot of the guys are overpriced that are in bad situations, dealing with health issues, or again, just clearly overpriced for what their workload's probably going to be. So usually I don't play any quarterbacks above $11,000 on most slates. Lamar Jackson is not any quarterback. If it's not throwing for 5 touchdown passes like he did on the last showdown slate, it's running for 100 plus yards. And at the end of the day, there's only like 15 to 16 to 17 viable players who can be in a winning lineup on a showdown slate. Maybe 18 depending on the slate. In this one, I think there's probably around 18. Lamar Jackson is by far the one who has the highest ceiling. He has the highest floor. He's going to put up a 20 spot in this spot probably somewhere around 80% of the time. And if he's going to go out there 4 to 5 times and put up at least 20 fantasy points, it's really hard for me to get away from that on a slate where you're just trying to score the most points and there's very few options that are going to replace his value. So averaging close to 29 fantasy points per game this season, Lamar, without a doubt, is a guy that I'm going to get in any sort of game mode. Putting him in the captain spot is still a question that I have to answer for myself, depending on where some of this injury news settles out. You probably force yourself into a kicker and then a couple of low-end plays. So I'm not totally away from it, but Lamar has to be rostered in most utility spots, in my opinion. Ravens defense at 5,800 is in play. Look, 14.5-point home favorite. The Jets only have a 14.5-point total. I don't remember the last time I saw a team total being the same as a spread. That in the NFL, that is insane. 14.5 team total and a 14.5 favorite, the spread for the Ravens here at home, and you just get such a great secondary here. The secondary is just only going to improve the pass rush. The fact that they're huge favorites, that is also going to improve the pass rush. If you're not familiar, when you're ahead by 1 to 2 scores, even more, 3 scores. You can just blitz so much more. You don't really worry too much about a big play burning you at that point. It helps your secondary out, and it obviously helps you get to a quarterback who, in Sam Darnold, has been making a lot of mistakes this year. All the Jets wide receivers have by far really, really negative, all three of them at least 15% negative compared to average advantages against these cornerbacks from the Ravens. This is the third best secondary when healthy, in my opinion, if not second best secondary, right up there with the 49ers and the Patriots in the league. Justin Tucker, the kicker for Baltimore, 4,000, has a nice implied total in terms of his overall over-under for points in this game. Much better, as you would imagine, just based on the fact that his team is implied for twice as many points than the Jets kicker Sam Ficken in this one, but they're only $200 apart. So I much prefer Justin Tucker here. And at $4,000 in a slate where there's a lot of guys overpriced and you need to find value, I like the upside of Tucker, who's averaging 9.6 fantasy points per game. That is a lot. That leads all kickers this season. Just for reference, Sam Ficken on the slate, only 5.9. So averaging about 3.5, 4 more points per game than the next kicker, who's only $200 less. Or in other words, he's only $200 more. Give me Justin Tucker there. I feel really good about a 10-plus point performance here. He would be the kicker that I would get to more so than not, more times than not. Ryan Griffin, if he does play, is only 2,200. Seems like the best value play in the slate in terms of he'll run 30 to 35 plus routes in this one. He has a neutral matchup against Brandon Carr in the secondary. All the Jets pass catchers are in brutal spots. He probably has the best of the bunch. If he does suit up and he is healthy, 2,200 is one of the better, if not best, value plays on the slate. Now my maybes. So out of these maybes, those are my 4 yeses. These maybes, I'm going to have around 7 or 8 of them, starting with Le'Veon Bell at 9,400. Man, it's just hard to recommend a guy who's a 14.5 point underdog on the road on a short week where he's been dealing with an illness, but he's $9,400. So what are you getting here? 12 carries on like average as a more than 2 touchdown underdog, right? I don't know what else you can expect. You're pretty much betting on and banking on his passing game involvement to be huge and then also touchdowns. His passing game involvement at 9,400, even say he has and his yards per carry this year is around 3. So let's just say he has a good game, 12 carries for 50 yards, right? Above average, which doesn't seem likely against this around average. It's 16 or so in the league, 16th Rams defensive line against the run, but 12 for 50 would be a good game on the ground, right? Over 4 yards per carry, definitely better than a season average, but then you're banking on a lot to happen in the receiving game. 7, 8 receptions for 50, 60 yards. At that point, you're starting to get to that 16, 17, 18, probably the magic number you need at 9,400 to make Le'Veon Bell pay off, especially if you're rostering Lamar Jackson. So I like Bell's upside because these receivers for the Jets are in brutal spots. Maybe it means he sees more dump-off passes. Maybe he can find his way into the end zone. But at 9,400, I'm a little bit skeptical. 14.9 fantasy points per game this year for Le'Veon Bell. Mark Andrews is dealing with that injury, only running 15 routes per week, even if you take out last week's injury game, through the last 6 games that he's played the full game in. He's likely to practice in some variety this week, but not a ton. 8,400 seems a little bit steep. Now, you're banking on the red zone upside, but what if Mark Andrews catches 4 balls for 40 yards and a touchdown? Is that 14 points enough at 8,400 to fit the puzzle pieces together? I'm not too sure, so I'm a little bit skeptical also on Mark Andrews at that price point. You're starting to see the trend here. Outside of Lamar, so far these guys who are priced up have a lot of holes in them in a lot of ways that they don't pay off their price tags because Lamar is so expensive. So now they don't need to just score 12 to 14 to work out. They need to get you 15, 16, 17 to be jumping other players to fit into that puzzle piece for you since Lamar is so much money. Marquis Brown is in a matchup. He has a positive 13% matchup against Austin. The only concern for Marquis Brown is last 6 games, he's only averaging 17.8 routes run per week, and over that time averaging just 3 receptions for 32 yards per game. Now, he has 3 touchdowns over that span, 2 in one game, the last time that they played on prime time. But man, is it brutal to want to pay $8,200 for a guy who more times than not in this matchup sees 5 targets. Like, as 14.5 point favorites, I doubt Lamar Jackson is throwing more than 24 times in this one. He's going to throw out of those 24 times, half of them to his 3 tight ends that he uses if Andrews is active. And then he's going to sprinkle the rest around between running backs to get 2 or 3, 9 targets to go around between the 4 receivers they use in this offense. It just leads to Hollywood Brown's upside at 8,200 being on big plays. And yes, this Jets secondary is definitely susceptible to them. So out of all these guys who are priced up, Bell, Andrews, and Brown, maybe you take your stab on Brown. You're just going to get more volume out of Bell. The guy who kind of is the odd man out for me is Andrews. Again, a skeptical player at this price point. Nick Boyle and Hayden Hurst, the tight ends who would benefit from Mark Andrews sitting, although it doesn't seem like that. I like Nick Boyle over Hurst for only $200 more. Look, he's running about 3 routes more per week over the last 3 weeks. He has 3 more receptions during that time, 1 more yard and 1 more touchdown. So they're very much similar, but he has 4 more targets. He's the leader in snaps on this team. He's more attractive if you get no Mark Andrews, of course. But if Mark Andrews is in, I would prefer Boyle over Hurst for a similar price point. He just has more usage in terms of snaps, and a lot of the production from Hayden Hurst came last week once Mark Andrews went down. He has 145 yards over the last 6 weeks. That's fine for a tight end, but 73 of them, half of them came last week. So if you take that one out, he only has 72 yards over the last 5 weeks, and that's not that great. You're looking at about, 12, 15 yards per week the 5 weeks prior to that, whereas Nick Boyle's production has been more stable, seeing about 3 targets per week, as opposed to Hayden Hurst seeing about 2 or 3, and most of them not resulting in anything aside from his long touchdown last week. So Hayden Hurst, for me, he's only in play if Mark Andrews is out. If Mark Andrews is in, I'm just going to go to Mark Andrews. In some spots, probably not many, but prefer Hayden Hurst. Or prefer Nick Boyle over Hurst. So right now, Hurst is an interest, but again, if Mark Andrews is indeed ruled in, which it seems like he will be, I won't have much interest in Hurst. Sam Ficken, the Jets kicker, 14.5 point total. There's not much to like here at 3,800. You should be getting to Justin Tucker. I'm actually going to make Sam Ficken a no. The only reason that I do kind of like Ficken is if they end up scoring 9 points in this game, 6 points, and it's all by field goals because they can't move the ball all that much, but they get it close enough to at least try and put some points on the board, keep it respectable. That's why Ficken stays in play, because he hits 2 40-yard field goals. He's got, as a car opens it up, he hits 2 40-yard field goals. He's got 8 points in your lineup at that price point. So as a kicker, I'll just leave him in. We'll take the finger off the trigger. Winston Smith at $600. He's just a flyer. He's running 10 routes per week over the last 6 games, 5 catches, 102 yards, and 11 targets over that time. But the last 2 weeks, you've seen him spike a little bit. 15.5 routes run per week, stable about 16 routes these last 2 weeks each. I believe exactly it was 17 and 14 or 17 and 15. So now you have him, or 16 and 15 is what it was the last 2 weeks. He caught 3 balls for 60 yards on 5 targets during that time. You're probably not going to get much here. Even if he catches 2 balls for 20 yards, those 4 points at $600 probably aren't enough to win you anything. You need much more. The good news is 15 routes run at $600 is at least worth mentioning for this video, playing about 30 to 40% of the snaps, acting as the wide receiver 4. Again, it's a brutal matchup. I probably wouldn't roster Winston Smith, but for the people who love to search for these just 100, 200, or like the 200, 400, 500, $600 plays, he would be the one, if anything, but again, don't really recommend him. Mark Ingram at 10,400. Man, a lot has to go right here, and it happened for him on the last Showdown slate, right? Catches a touchdown, gets one on the ground. He had a big day. 10,400, the second most expensive player on the slate. So far, what you're seeing out of him is 16.8 touches per game over the last 4. He's had a reception in each of the last 4 games. At least 2 receptions in 3 out of the last 4, and he had 3 receptions in 2 of those games. So that's good to see him getting a little bit more involved in the passing game. Not a ton, but 2, 3 receptions. That's at least worth mentioning. 15 touches is pretty much like an average number you get from him here. Maybe you get to the 16, 17, 18 mark. I think Gus Edwards starts to see a lot more work, and Justice Hill, before they give it to Mark Ingram. They feel pretty confident just giving Ingram 15 carries, giving him a reception or 2. So at 10,400, he's in play. A lot can go right for him, right? They're going to be in the red zone a lot. They're probably going to run the ball close to 40 times in this game with Lamar, Ingram, Justice Hill, and Gus Edwards. He's just not a priority at that price tag, because if I'm rostering Lamar and then I also roster Ingram, I have nothing left over. And at that point, you're hoping for what probably happens is an onslaught, but you're hoping for Lamar to have 3+ touchdowns and Mark Ingram to have 2+ touchdowns for it to work out for you after that, because you're probably only fitting Ryan Griffin, Justin Tucker, maybe both kickers you might have to force in there. And at that point, it just capture upside. And lastly, Gus Edwards at 4,800, 7.2 touches per game over the last 6 games. He'll probably play about 25 to 30 snaps total in this one. He seems overpriced at 4,800. Look, if he has 7 carries for his average 40, 30 yards a game, it's not doing much for you at this price tag. Even if he gets in the end zone, even if he has like 20 yards and a touchdown on the ground, are those 8 fantasy points at 4,800 doing much for you? Especially if Justin Tucker goes for 10 and Sam Ficken for a cheaper price tag, $1,000 less, goes for like 6 or 7 as a kicker. I just find it hard to believe that Gus Edwards' $4,800 tag ends up being paid off in this one, unless he finds the end zone and has probably multiple scores on the ground. And now my nose, Demaryius Thomas was originally a yes at 5,200, 28.8 routes run per game. He's just going to face Marcus Peters, and Peters has been the number 6 cornerback in the league, according to many key statistical stats, and just yards per route run, in overall coverage gradings. He's been fantastic. And Demaryius Thomas does not have much flash, just 6 receptions per week for 37 yards over the last 6 weeks on a per average basis, or 3 receptions per week for 36 yards. So like what you're getting there is pretty much 6-7 fantasy points per game. Not great for 5,200 on a Showdown slate in a brutal matchup. Crowder would probably be the one Jets receiver I do get to. He probably just has the toughest matchup as well. Marlon Humphrey in the slot. It's a minus 16% advantage, so negative 16% compared to average for Crowder. I just lean not to get here. If you were to pick a Jets receiver, I would pick just a pass catcher, Ryan Griffin, if he plays. If not, then I would get to Crowder at 7,800. Just a steep price point for a spot where Humphreys probably shuts Crowder down more times than not. Sam Darnold at 9,800. All the Jets wide receivers have at least a minus 16% or worse advantage, which is not good. $9,800 Darnold is just too much, right? I'm going to play Lamar Jackson. Darnold, if he was 8,600, 8,000 flat, usually they price these quarterbacks down on showdowns for the matchup, but this is as bad of a matchup as it gets. Only on the road with a 14.5 implied total. I'm not paying $9,800 for Sam Darnold. I would have 0%. Robbie Anderson at $9,000 has the best matchup against Jimmy Smith. Even that, though, is a minus 16% matchup for him. He's 9,000. Maybe you think that he beats Jimmy Smith in the secondary and Earl Thomas in the second unit. I just don't think so. And this is what you're seeing. I have no interest in the passing game here, so I'm just going with an onslaught. I'm going with Lamar, the kicker, the Ravens defense, and just going with all of these Ravens and just hoping for a blowout as Vegas is predicting. I just don't see how this Jets team moves the ball. If you wanted to go to one Jets receiver, Robbie Anderson is the big play upside guy, but he's also $9,000. I would prefer Jamison Crowder at $7,800. Again, don't have much interest in any of them. All these Baltimore wide receivers, not that great, besides maybe Brown, although Brown is priced up. Snead, only 15 routes per week, not great. Over the last 6 games, just 12 receptions for 79 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 2 receptions per week for 13 yards per week. I can't pay $5,000 for that. Bilal Powell is unlikely to play as of right now. Ty Montgomery, $3,000. He'll be the backup to Le'Veon Bell. He'll take on the Bilal Powell role of 6 to 8 touches. So maybe you get 3 receptions there. Maybe he has 5-6 points, but he's $3,000. So he's okay. Maybe I should put him in play as the backup, primary backup in this game. Maybe the pass catching responsibilities are needed a little bit more in this one. He used 2 running backs on the field at once. At $3,000, I think he's at least in play since he's cheaper than the kickers, but you probably get around 7 to 8 touches out of him, only 1 to 2 receptions, and you're left with like 5 or 6 fantasy points more times than not. So it's really tough to recommend it. I think he's a low-end option in this one. Jets defense, no way I'm going there when the Ravens are going to run 40 times in this one and probably end up putting up like 30-plus points on them. It's just tough to go there. Again, 14.5-point underdogs on the road. Probably don't want to play a defense there, especially against a team that just doesn't throw all that often. Seth Roberts, 14.7 routes run per week, just 6 catches for 67 yards. He's averaging 1 catch for 11 yards per game over the last 6. No thank you. Miles Boykin runs just 9 routes per week over the last 6 games. So far, he has 2 catches for 54 yards over the last 6 games on 6 targets and 0 catches, 0 targets the last 2 games. Justice Hill has played 10 total snaps the last 2 weeks. He likely sees 3 touches in this game more times than not for like 10 yards. So no thank you at 200. So that's it. Those are 25 players on the slate that I think are at least worth mentioning. And out of those 25, I think I listed 14 with the late addition of Ty Montgomery as interests. This is a gross slate. I'm just going to go with the Ravens onslaught as Vegas is projecting at home as 14.5-point favorites. Give me Lamar. Give me the Ravens defense. Give me Justin Tucker. If Ryan Griffin plays, give me him, and then just find something else to fill this lineup out. If you really do trust some more things on the Jets like Le'Veon Bell or Anderson for a deep play, go for it. But that's where I'm going right now. Hopefully this helps you. Please do comment down below. Who's your favorite play? Very curious on this slate below $5,000. Leave your Twitter handle. You must be a subscriber or your PayPal, and I'll award somebody on Friday in the Friday Final Thoughts video. Be sure to tune into that. Hit that subscribe button also, again, just to join that contest, but also for, growing the channel here. It helps out, reach more people. On the audio version, 5-star rate and review if you've listened this far. Thank you so much. Check out my exclusive content over on Patreon if you are indeed interested. And if you want 66% off my NFL Daily Fantasy course, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll send you the link. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Peace out, gang. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Above my head, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, I do ask you if you can please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a good amount to reach more people. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's over there. Right in the corner is my @SalVetriDFS Twitter. And then above, you'll find my Patreon link. You can click on that if you want more exclusive content for me. Or a video is going to pop up, so why don't you check that one out as well. I think it's going to be beneficial for you. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.